Hello, 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 and welcome to Nursing News You Can Use live at 5. I'm Tina Baxter. Your host today is February the 4th, 2026, and we have a lot of news to get into today. And so I wanted to start off with um, sort of my leadership tip for this week. So this past week, I put out our latest podcast episode on the Neurotrack Academy show, the other show. And I talked about finding your niche, and I wanted to share that with you. And usually we do a positive affirmation today, but I wanted to share a leadership moment because I just had a bunch of conversations with different entrepreneurs, business owners, and it all came down to finding out who your audience is. And so, if you're looking to start a business, one of the most important things you can do is to find out who is or who you are trying to serve, right? Who's your ideal customer? Because too many times we want to speak to everyone and we miss the mark. And so by niching down, by reducing down to who we really want to target and talk to, that frees you up so much that you are able then to attract the right customer for you. So if you want to learn more, go to the nursetrackacademy.biz. We've got some great resources for you today for that. But it just made me think about and appreciate the fact that I get to be here and talk to nurses. And it sort of reaffirmed for me what I love to do, and that's to highlight other nurses in business. So I'm excited about that. I've got some exciting things that are happening at the Nurse Track Academy, and I wanted to share that with you because as I really lean into talking to nurses, I discover that there's just so much out there for me, and I bet you will too when you discover who's your ideal customer. That being said, let's go ahead and get into the news. Okay, so you can see what's happening out here in New York. We all know this is from DocWire News. It's on the strikes that are happening right now in New York, and it says, "We just want safety." New York nurses speak on strike as strike drags on. As the largest nursing strike in New York City's history persists into the fourth week, DocWire News spoke with Dania Munoz and Darla Joyner to provide a voice to the frontline nurses who are seeking safe staffing, strong and protected health benefits, increased wages, and enhanced workplace violence prevention. So the strike, which comprises more than 15,000 nurses represented by the New York State Nurses Association, began on January 12th and targets three of the region's major health systems, Montefiore Health, New York Presbyterian Hospital, and Mount Sinai Hospital, the latter of which employs Dr. Munez and Ms. Joyner, who expressed their concerns about the ongoing back and forth. So Ms. Joyner says, "We just want basic safety." She's been at Mount Sinai for about 8 years. We want our health care. We want to care for a safe number of patients. I cannot just stop there and say that that's the majority of what nurses are saying across the country and indeed in other parts of the world. I was just speaking with someone on their podcast as a guest, and that'll be coming out next week for those of you who want to know. I'll be posting that as well. But for our conversation, but I was just speaking with someone on their podcast, and we were talking about, she's from Canada, and we're talking about the nursing shortage, and I use that word lightly because we realize there's no shortage of nursing, there's just a shortage of nursing who will take crap from the healthcare industry. But I digress. And as I was thinking about that, and we were talking about that, it's not just in the United States, it's elsewhere, and nurses are all saying the same thing. We want to take care of a safe number of patients. They want to be taken care of. They want to feel like they're protected. They want violence to be reduced in healthcare and not being treated as fodder. And so, it's so funny. I was just watching Nurse John, I believe it was, who had this parody out, and I was watching his parody about nurses being heroes. And I see these things, and I recognize that, wherever we are, we all saying the same thing. So they had an agreement that they were trying to work out. There's a concession that the union described as a major hurdle being cleared. Union leaders say that the talks are stalled on the core issues safe staffing, and protection from violence, workplace violence. So those are the new non-negotiables in making the deal. Staffing is going to be non-negotiable, but that's just one of them. We're probably going to have to make a compromise there. Just meet middle ground, a safe working environment. That was from Ms. Joyner. With respect to safety, hospitals say that they have security protocols in place. And in terms of pay, they are characterized the union's wage demands as too expensive. Talks continue intermittently via mediation, and the union is negotiating with each hospital system separately. Also, not every hospital in these systems is strike affected. Other private networks have reached tentative deals with the union to avoid walkouts, and city run public hospitals are unaffected. Yet, for people like Dr. Munez, who works in the ICU as a nurse practitioner, a key pain point she would like to see addressed amid this challenge boils down to respect. One of the things that I keep saying is just respect for people. I think if nurses are telling you that these are the things that you need to improve our working conditions, not just because it impacts us as workers, but we're also talking about something that also impacts our patients and even other workers in the institution. So the perception of the hospital system disrespect is echoed by Ms. Joyner. In terms of the end game, neither side seems to have a concrete answer on what the solution will be reached or when it will be reached, although negotiations continue. All parties come to the bargaining table. So since January 31st. So we'll see what happens, right? Hospitals say that they're respecting value of the part these nurses play. I always think that, it's funny how they say that, but your actions have to meet that, right? Your actions have to meet that. And so many times it's just words. What about actions? And so this is what's going on there. And so there's more information coming up. But if you're in New York and you're a part of this, let me know what you think, because I'm just curious to see what you have to say about that. Okay, so we do have another update and another strike action happening. So let's talk about Kaiser. We'll go to the other side of the nation. So we had East Coast, now let's go West Coast. Okay. So Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers enter second week of strike over staffing and wages. A strike involving Kaiser Permanente nurses and the healthcare workers moved to a second week Monday as union members and supporters rallied outside the Ontario facility. Tens of thousands of Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers across California and Hawaii walked off the job last week in a strike over safe staffing levels, fair compensation, and timely care for patients. The striking workers are members of the United Nurses Association of California / Union of Healthcare Professionals. ICU nurse Nicole Jimenez is saying, "We're fighting for our patients, we're fighting for safe staffing, we're fighting because this workload that falls on our healthcare providers' shoulders is so heavy." Union leaders argue wages haven't kept up with inflation and chronic understaffing is delaying care and putting patients at risk. A lot of our patients are experiencing a delay in getting to see their primary doctor. So these patients end up in the emergency department and in our urgent care. So urgent care nurse Jennifer Cabra. The union is seeking a 25% wage increase over 4 years, saying nurses in Southern California earn at least 7% less than their peers in other regional hospitals. We need to be compensated. Inflation is going up. It's really expensive to live in California. Kaiser Permanente strongly disputes the union's claims, of course. In a statement, they say, "Our employees, quote, already earn on average about 16% more than similar roles at other healthcare organizations, and in some markets up to 25% more." But along the picket line, nurses say they have yet to see the progress at the bargaining table as the strike continues. So Kaiser is set to meet with the union's bargaining team, and this was to happen yesterday. And so we'll see what happens more. But this brings me to this article where it says Kaiser readies for pharmacy and lab workers strike as nurse walkout continues. This is from Reuters. And it says Kaiser Permanente urged members on Tuesday to get laboratory tests done this week after unions representing pharmacy and lab workers filed to begin striking in Southern California on Monday, and an ongoing strike by thousands of nurses and other healthcare workers continuing to a second week. The nonprofit healthcare system said the United Food and Commercial Workers Union notified it of a planned strike by about 3,000 members starting February 9th. United Nurses Association California Unit of Health Care Professionals, which represents about 31,000 Kaiser employees, began its open-ended strike in California and Hawaii on January 26. Kaiser, a health maintenance organization combining insurance coverage with medical care, notified members on its website to complete any urgent lab tests by Saturday and to postpone routine testing until after the strike. And so, first of all, let's think about this here, because someone brought this up, and I can't remember who and where I saw it, but I saw it somewhere on someone's social. But they were talking about, no, actually, I take it back. I do know who it was. It was Jasmine Crockett, and it was during one of the hearings. And she was talking to one of the Aetna CEO, right? And so they were talking about how the insurance company that insures the member also owns the healthcare entities like the primary care offices, so the hospitals, the pharmacies, and so all the money just kind of stays in one organization. So it all flows, and it kind of makes this thing work because, they're paying themselves this care, and then, you get the patient kind of stays within their system, and that increases the revenues. And so that made me think about that. How ethical is it? And again, I know it's legal, right? Because we're doing it, but I'm asking how ethical it is if you own the insurance company for you also to own the hospital. Because to me, I think that you would make decisions based on your bottom line that may not necessarily align with the values for the hospital. I just wonder, are you creating a monopoly? And that's just some of the things that they were talking about. Is healthcare becoming too much of a monopoly where certain key players own everything, and you either have to stay within their system to get any care? And so where's the free enterprise? Where's the competition in that? So that makes me wonder about that. But anyway, let's go on. It says, it is said some outpatient lab services, including routine blood draws, may be temporarily closed starting on Monday, and results for non-urgent tests may be delayed. Priorities given to patients who are hospitalized in the emergency department or require urgent care services. It said hospitals and medical offices remain open, but some pharmacies and clinics operated at Target stores have been temporarily closed. It encouraged members to use a mail-in option for non-urgent prescriptions. Some appointments would be shifted to virtual care, and some elective procedures may be rescheduled. During the current strike, Kaiser says its facilities will be staffed by physicians, managers, and trained staff with licensed contract professionals added as needed. So we'll see. They're saying the union for the pharmacy technicians and clinical lab scientists say that Kaiser stalled bargaining and violated federal labor law. So they said Kaiser unlawfully walked away from an agreed upon national bargaining process. So Kaiser, which has about 250,000 non-physician employees, said in a statement that it has been negotiating in good faith to reach an agreement on a new set of national and local contracts. So we'll see what happens. Just to keep you up to breast. If you're in California and you know what's going on with Kaiser, chime in, let me know. But I'm just saying, wow. Okay, so in other strike news, got a lot of strikes. Let's come back to the Midwest. Michigan nurses strike at Henry Ford Genesis may be nearing resolution. Okay. So Henry Ford Genesis Hospital and Teamsters Local 332 said the end of their 154-day strike might be near. Both sides are reporting important steps and ongoing negotiation. More than 700 nurses walked out on Labor Day. That's back in September, y'all. Demanding better pay and safer patient-to-nurse ratios. Again, it's the same thing across the country. Same thing. When are you going to get it? Nurses want to feel safe when they go to work. They want to be paid a decent wage that keeps it with inflation. It's not hard. The health system said it's met the union more than 70 times since September in efforts to reach a deal. However, Teamsters claim the hospital has refused to meet and bargain several times. Both parties are expected to continue talks on Tuesday, which was yesterday. A joint statement on behalf of Henry Ford Genesis says, and Teamster Local 332 says that Friday night, representatives from Henry Ford Genesis Hospital and Teamster Local 332 reached an important milestone towards ending the ongoing labor dispute. We remain optimistic as crucial steps in the negotiations process continue. We appreciate everyone's understanding and we look forward to sharing more when we're able. So Henry Ford has about 18,000 nurses across the health system, and they're hoping that they will soon get a contract. So Teamsters Local 332 and Henry Ford Genesis Hospital Management have been working together diligently to establish an agreement for Teamster nurses, and we are getting closer to ending this strike with each passing day. As we move forward in this process, we're optimistic that our members will soon have a collective bargaining agreement that reflects the hard work, dedication, and commitment they have devoted to Henry Ford Genesis Hospital, said Dan Glass, president of the Teamsters Union. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Just want to share that again. There's strikes going on all over the country, and I think we just need to start paying attention. All right, so we're going to get to this next story, and this talks about. This is from nurse.org, I believe. Yes, it is. Certified nurse midwives challenge Mississippi law limiting practice authority. Let's see what happens. Okay. So, a federal lawsuit filed in January 2026 argues that Mississippi's long-standing physician collaboration requirement for certified nurse midwives is worsening the state's maternal and infant health crisis by preventing qualified nurses from practicing to the full extent of their training. The American College of Nurse Midwives, the ACNM, filed suit in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi against the Mississippi State Board of Medical Licensure and the Mississippi Board of Nursing, seeking to block enforcement of statutes and regulations that require CNMs to obtain and maintain physician collaboration agreements before they can practice. The complaint opens by framing Mississippi's maternal health outcomes as an emergency, stating plainly, there is a public health emergency in Mississippi. According to the lawsuit, Mississippi ranks at or near the bottom nationally for infant mortality, maternal mortality, preterm birth, and cesarean delivery rates. The filing notes that on August 21st, 2025, the Mississippi State Department of Health formally declared a public health emergency in response to rising infant mortality and urged action to eliminate OB deserts and expand prenatal and postpartum care. The lawsuits argue that restrictive laws governing CNM practice are directly undermining those goals. According to the state line, in Mississippi's quote, advanced practice nurse practitioners, including certified nurse midwives, can't practice without a signed collaborative practice agreement with a doctor. Now, I'm going to say this again because I think a lot of people misunderstand the role of these collaborative practice agreements. Basically, they're a piece of paper that says a physician needs to review a certain amount of charts from the nurse, the advanced practice nurse, and then may also have to sign off on a few charts. But it never says anything about they actually have to review the patient. They never actually see the patient. Sometimes they don't even have to be on site at all. They can do all of this remotely and collect a check. And so my question is, if they're not actively participating in the care and treatment of the patient, they're not really providing any type of oversight or anything. It's not as if they are there and you're jointly managing the patient. For a lot of these collaborative practice agreements, it's just a checkbox and a signature. And so for the individual physician, because nurse practitioners historically have been sued very little, all it is a money generating thing. It really doesn't help with the care of the individual patient. So I think a lot of patients think that it does. It's not an actual protection because they only review 5% of the charts, as in the case of Indiana, and they never actually have to see the patient. In fact, so because Indiana has a collaborative practice environment, I worked for a company doing hospice care. I did all of the face-to-face visits, determining eligibility to remain in hospice. I did all the paperwork, filled everything out, but it took the physician to sign it to say what I just done was okay. The physician never actually saw the patient, doesn't know the pain scores of what the patient, other than what's reported in the medical record. Couldn't even tell you anything about the patient and what other things going on in their life. But yet, it requires their signature in order for the company to get reimbursed and for the services to continue. And so I think the way that we set this up is what's causing the problem. It's old thinking and it's antiquated. So the complaint explains that without physicians' collaboration, a certified nurse midwife may not begin practicing, continuing practicing, or renew their license. If a physician withdraws from the collaborative agreement for any reason, the CNM must immediately stop practicing unless a new agreement is approved by the Board of Nursing. And that's where the problem is, because there's no grace period, there's no transition period. So basically, you're in the middle of having your baby, you're being treated by a midwife, and the midwife said, "Sorry, my doctor decided to retire me. I can't see you anymore." And the lawsuit also emphasizes that physicians are under no obligation to collaborate. They can choose to do so or not, and may refuse to terminate agreements for any reason or no reason at all. I just don't feel like doing it anymore. You're not paying me enough. Whatever. So they argue that the collaboration requirement does not improve patient safety because CNMs are already educated, trained, licensed, and regulated to provide maternity care independently. The complaint states that the requirement does nothing to advance patient safety or quality of care, and instead creates barriers that are irrational and anti-competitive. The lawsuit further alleges that additional rules imposed by the Mississippi State Board of Medical Licensure make collaboration harder and more expensive by converting it to a formal contract, imposing geographic limits, and allowing standardized pricing for collaboration fees. According to the filing, the regulations, quote, discourage physicians from collaborating, raise the price of collaboration, and give physicians even more incentive to exclude CNMs who are their potential competitors. The complaint cites decades of research showing that midwife led care for low risk pregnancies produces outcomes comparable to or better than physician led care. It notes that extensive empirical literature demonstrates that midwife led care for low risk pregnancies produces outcomes comparable to or better than physician led care while improving access in underserved areas. And we have to go back to remember, back in the day, babies were not delivered by doctors, they were delivered by midwives. It could be your neighbor next door that worked as a midwife and she attended to you at your birth because it was considered woman's work back then. And I'm not saying that we need to go back to untrained people delivering babies, but I am saying that we need to look at how modern medicine has taken over areas that did not once belong to them. So one of the lawsuits most striking claims is that the Mississippi law places stricter requirements on nurse midwives than other types of midwives. The complaint explains that lay midwives and certified professional midwives may practice in Mississippi without physician collaborator or state oversight. So again, it's the issue is that they're nurses. That's the issue, and that's my argument. You'll let anybody else do whatever, but as soon as you put nurse in the name, then you got a problem. It's the same with nurses being able to use their title doctorate. If you earned your doctorate, you should be able to use it. But because you say you're a nurse, you can't do that. They don't say that about psychologists. They don't say that about chiropractors. Heck, they don't say that about dentists, right? You don't hear about it about the physical therapists. You don't hear about them. They're not worried about them. It's only because you're nurses. And that's the problem I have with it. There's a double standard there. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll get on with our next article. Ready to turn your nursing skills into a thriving business? At the Nurse Shark Academy, we give you expert strategies, real startup guidance, and the support to go from employee to empowered entrepreneur. Join us and build the nurse-owned business of your dreams. Start today and join us at the nursesharkacademy.biz. Okay, and we are back. All right, so let's take a look here. Our next article, this is coming from a press release from the American Nurses Association. I just wanted to share this. I'm pretty sure many of you have heard of it. We've talked about it before in the show. But it says American Nurses Association President on Immigration Enforcement in Healthcare. Following the fatal shooting of Alex Peretti by Border Patrol agents in Minnesota, several medical groups have been speaking out about immigration enforcement, including in healthcare settings. The American Nurses Association has led the charge. The group called for a full investigation into the shooting death of Peretti, an ICU nurse at Minneapolis VA Medical Center. But the group also urged its 5 million members to contact Congress and demand an end to immigration enforcement efforts that impede, quote, the ability to provide care in all healthcare settings. And that's the problem that I have, to where now your need for an arrest or whatever interferes with the need for medical care for individuals. And I have a problem with that. So you're going to let this person die and suffer because your feelings got hurt, sir. And that's what it amounts to. Your feelings got hurt. And you're saying, oh, I felt unsafe. By someone trying to help someone else to stay alive? I have a big problem with that. When you're coming in and you're all masked up, gunned up, and all this stuff, and you're rushing in there with weapons and shouting at people, and you feel unsafe. Let's take a step back and think about this situation. Because I think a lot of the behaviors that are being exhibited are causing the very unsafe conditions that you're worried about. And I think there's a better way. And I think the public would have been on your side if it was done in a more lawful way, where people felt as if they were not being terrorized. And I don't use that word lightly. And so and the fact that now local law enforcement is also caught in the middle of this. And now you're trying to put nurses in the middle of this as well, other healthcare professionals that are just trying to do their jobs. And my question is, okay, so in several states now, it's now a felony for someone to interfere with the workings of a healthcare professional and to assault them. So can we then, as healthcare professionals, turn around and have you charged with a felony? Because you interfered with our duties? And so I'm saying this, that I have no problem with following the law and doing the things that we're supposed to do peacefully and lawfully. And yes, things can happen and escalate. I understand all those things. Believe me. But I also know that if you show up as a bully, people don't take too kindly to that. And this is still America. And people have rights. And violating those rights don't make you any better. And it makes it even worse for you because you're the ones who are supposed to be following the law and enforcing the law. And if you keep breaking the law, violating people's rights, how are you going to say that you're upholding the very law that you claim to be using to detain people? So I think we need to take a step back as a country and really evaluate how we're doing this. But let's get on, because this is my show and I can talk how I want to talk. And if it may hurt your feelings, sorry, not sorry. Because I think we need to look at the bigger picture. This isn't about an individual person, although in this case the story is. But actually, it's more than that, because it's about all of us. And how do we want to be perceived as a nation? Anyway, let's get into it. So Jennifer Minsick Kennedy, president of the ANA, spoke with chief healthcare executive, which is where the story comes from, about immigration enforcement in hospitals and other healthcare settings, the death of Peretti, and the mindset of nurses at a turbulent time. She says that she's encouraged by the support that nurses have received. When asked about how nurses are responding, she says, I'm getting a lot of great feedback related to feeling connected and recognizing how much the public is supporting them and how much the public is behind them. Okay. Says his death has spurred nurses to speak up and make their voices heard. This has brought more people, more nurses out to do some vigils and kind of be more present in some of the areas. It has kind of empowered nurses to be more freely speaking about these issues, which is all true. However, there's more that needs to be done. Holding visuals and thoughts and prayers is not going to get the work done. Tens of thousands of nurses who wrote to Congress in response to the ANA's call. She says that she hoped it made a difference and notes lawmakers moved to separate funding for immigration enforcement efforts from a broader federal spending package. And so again, I'm like, yes, you have an important job to do. You need to do it, but also the nurse, the other healthcare providers. So nurses have reported some problematic encounters with ICE agents. She's heard of nurses asking for information protected by HIPAA without appropriate documentation, such as subpoenas or warrants signed by judges. And so that becomes a problem then, because you just can't unilaterally decide that, well, none of the other laws matter because I decided I'm going to take charge. She says she's concerned that the fear of running into immigration agents is deterring some patients from getting care, including members of minority groups who are citizens. Yes, because if you look like me or have an accent, you're guilty before you're proven innocent. You have to prove that you're a citizen. That's a problem. Instead of targeting the people that you say you're looking for, you're just throwing out a wide net and grabbing anybody in there. That's a problem. So she says nurses have encountered problems with immigration agents outside of hospital settings. She said home health nurses have been stopped by federal agents and being asked for the names of the list of patients they're going in to see in the community. You can't do that, and we're not allowed to give you that information. That's private protected information. And so now you're putting the nurse in an impossible situation. I say, I can't give you that information. I need you to speak with my supervisor. I need to talk to my attorney. And then that's when the aggression comes up. And that's where you take out your frustrations, because you can hide behind a mask. It's okay. So Missick says that's not acceptable. So it's not just the hospitals where we're seeing this confusion. We're seeing this occur in communities as well. Nurses should be looking at their state board of nursing to know their rights, and nursing boards have been offering guidance in dealing with ICE agents. And I'm sorry, state board of nursing is not going to be your friend. Because we have these ethical standards we're supposed to hold up to. Then when you do something that they deem well not worthy, they can take your license. And so it's putting nurses in an impossible situation. And unfortunately, it's going to take a lot more people waking up to see this. So nurses are afraid they might lose their license if they don't provide the information, or they're being threatened saying, we're going to report you if you don't give this information. So the State Board of Nursing have been in a variety of states coming out with information just clarifying their stance from their position to help supporting nurses' rights on when these things occur. So some are even fearful of coming to work at the hospital because they're worried they're being detained by immigration agents. So again, there's more to this story if you want to look at it, but I'm just highlighting it. You can tell I'm fired up about it because I just don't think that treating people like they're subhuman and not worthy of dignity is acceptable under any circumstance. That's still a human being. That's still somebody's mother. That's still somebody's father. That's still somebody's daughter. That's still somebody's son. And to treat them as if they're no better than you treat animals better than we treat each other. I just, all right, so let's move on. So, and the reason why I bring this up is we're going to talk about this nurse that showed an act of heroism out in the community, because that's what we do, right? We step in, we help out. That's what we're trained to do. But now you're going to have nurses double thinking twice. Should I help this person, or am I going to get shot and killed? Am I going to lose my life or my license or anything? What is my family going to do if I stop and help this person? And God help us if all that happens. Here's the next story. Vermont nurses raises alarm about proposed federal loan limits. This is from BT Digger, and it says, a federal rule proposed Friday would cap the amount of federal dollars nurses can borrow towards graduate degrees. Vermont nurses say that can undermine an already strapped workforce. A coalition of nearly 150 nurses descended on the State House Tuesday morning, filling the House gallery, meeting with lawmakers, and congregating in the cafeteria. Though an annual affair, this year's visit had added urgency, arriving on the heels of the federal changes that have heightened many nurses' concerns about the future of healthcare in Vermont. Specifically, they pointed to Vermont's ability to retain and recruit a strong workforce of nurses. On Friday, the U.S. Department of Education formally posted a rule that would limit how much nurses pursuing graduate degrees can take out in federal loans. And can I just say this? Again, it's like there's been a war on nurses that I've noticed in the last few years. I don't use this lightly, but there has been a war on nursing that I've seen in the past few years where they're just attacking nursing and our profession left and right. And it makes me wonder if it's because most of the nurses, the majority of nurses, are female. There's got to be something better. But anyway, as it says, it's a bottleneck because if you don't have masterly prepared and doctorally prepared nurses that are willing to be educators, then you don't have new nurses coming in. This is from Heather Johnston, who is one of the nurses there. She has a doctorate in nursing practice and a primary care provider at Gifford Hospital. The new nurse at the associate degree and even baccalaureate level won't really be affected very much by this, but will be affected is this person to teach them. If you don't have the educator, you can't teach them. The loan changes were initially outlined in H.R. 1, the Trump administration's budget reconciliation bill that became law this summer. Nurses associations, including those in Vermont and those affected by the change, have been waiting for the formal rule and are advocating against it. The rule does not define higher level nursing degrees as professional degree programs, excluding nurses from this category, which physical therapists, social workers, educators, among others, are also not excluded from. The Department of Education is proposing a $20,000 $500 cap on federal loans that can go toward borrowing graduation degrees. So that total amount that a graduate level nursing student could borrow will be up to $100,000. Well, I don't know about you, but the cost of tuition is not going down. And if you add on the fact that they want to get another graduate degree and go for a full doctoral degree, that could be very expensive. So the Trump administration, this is according to the article, says the caps aim to incentivize schools to bring down the overall cost of tuition. Well, sir, why'd you do that for medical degrees? Yeah, practicing as a nurse doesn't require a graduate degree. But if you would like to do something better, you want to be an advanced practice nurse, it does. And so this is why I think they again, it has to do with the fact that it's nursing and it's a mostly female profession. And so this is a way to make sure they stay in their lane. So Michelle Wade, the president of the Vermont Nurse Practitioner Association, worries about the aging population of nurses. The workforce is declining and there's not enough new nurses coming. If we don't find a way to keep new nurses coming, no one's going to be there to take care of you. That's what's up. So there's more to this story. If you want to look at it, go to the VT Digger and look at it. But I'm going to say, yeah. Okay, so maybe here's a little bit of better news, sort of. This is from Healthcare Finance News. Funding bill extends telehealth and enacts PBM reform. So that's a little bit of good news, I guess. President Trump on Tuesday signed into law a funding bill that ended a short-term partial government shutdown, funds the Department of Health and Human Services, extends telehealth and virtual care flexibilities, and enacts pharmacy benefit manager reform. The minibus package did not revive Affordable Care Act, enhance premium tax credits that expired on December 31st, nor did it include provisions from President Trump's healthcare plan to send money directly to consumers' health savings accounts. So basically, those little incentives that you had to get your health insurance are pretty much gone. You don't have any protection there, so you're back to scrambling to get it what you want. So we'll see. The minibus ended a 3-day government shutdown. The sticking point, the funding bill was Democrat opposition to funding the Department of Homeland Security. The bill funds the Department of Homeland Security for only 2 weeks, according to Politico. The Senate on January 29th voted 71 to 29 to advance the package, and the House on February 3rd voted 217 to 214 to send the bill to President Trump for signature. The bill includes a 2-year extension of Medicare telehealth flexibilities and a 5-year extension of acute hospital care at home waiver. So that's a little bit of the good news. They finally made somewhat of a decision on telehealth. These flexibilities were first allowed during the COVID-19 pandemic and have extended with congressional approval and the support of the American Telemedicine Association and provider advocates, such as the American Hospital Association. Which I can say can be really crucial and critical, because I have some patients that are older. They're, some have, cancer or other immunocompromising diseases. And for them to have to come out to see me in this harsh weather, yeah, it's not good. So I'm glad that they've done that, because I think it's very important. It helps extend the healthcare for so many people in rural populations. So the Medicare telehealth flexibilities are extended through December 31st of 2027. So we got a little bit of breathing room for a couple years. Acute hospital care at home extended through September 30th of 2030. In-home cardiopulmonary rehab flexibilities are extended through January 1st of 2028. The bill includes a requirement that HHS issue guidance within 1 year on furnishing telehealth services to individuals with limited English proficiency. Okay. And a lot of platforms already have that. We have integrated interpreters. So, yeah. So this gives the government agencies, legislators, and advocates time to hammer out the details for permanent provisions. So that would be lovely if we could get something permanent to establish telehealth going forward. The government spending bill includes bipartisan prescription drug pricing reforms and a provision known as Q1, Q2, which was previously included in the Lower Cost, More Transparency Act. The provision would require the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to provide clearer guidance on ingredient differences in drugs, helping generic manufacturers bring more affordable alternatives to the market. PBM revenue will be separated from the price of the drug in Medicare Part D, reducing incentives to steer patients toward higher priced drugs. PBMs are required to report pricing and other data to Part D plan sponsors and to pass 100% of rebates to Medicare plans. Martin Basie, CEO of Patients for Affordable Drugs Now, said by statement, strengthening competition and increasing transparency are key to lowering prescription drug prices. 1 in 3 Americans is unable to afford their prescriptions, and Congress must go further to tackle the root cause of high drug prices reign in Big Pharma. And so that is true. I just had a conversation with a patient who was experiencing trouble with the generic version of the medication. The enteric-coated medication that was available, unfortunately, that medication was, I think, what was it, $3,000? Was the cheapest I think I could find it for a 30-day supply. Yeah, not many people can afford that on an ongoing basis. Okay, so let's get into the next story. This is coming from the Daily Pennsylvanian. Penn nursing students express frustration over disorganized clinical selection process. Multiple students at Penn's School of Nursing expressed frustration over the program's course selection process in interviews with the Daily Pennsylvanian. Through the Penn's course selection and drop periods, many nursing students experience scheduling challenges, despite describing the process as disorganized, last minute, and unprofessional. especially when selecting a clinical practice. Clinicals are a requirement to pursue a Bachelor of Science in Nursing and are typically taken the spring of the student's sophomore year. They are super disorganized. They will literally change you at the last minute, even after they've given you your assignment. Pardon me. Penn Nursing recognizes the frustration students can face regarding scheduling, said a nursing school spokesperson. Because clinical placements are hosted by external healthcare partners, timing is often dictated by hospital operations and staffing, which are outside of the school's direct control. So let's take a step back and think about this. Because they have low staffing at the hospital, short staffing, they don't have enough preceptors at the hospital to help teach the nursing students. So having the nursing students, when it on the surface may look like a help for the hospital, it may actually be a hindrance because who is there to guide the nursing students to do what they need to do? Yeah. It says, while our BSN curriculum is structured to meet rigorous national accreditation and licensing standards, we remain committed to supporting our students and receiving a well-rounded experience while at Penn. So Meja Ortiz expressed frustration with the nursing school's administration, claiming they care more about themselves than about the nursing students. She urged Penn to provide additional support and resources to help students navigate the process. She added that the structure of the curriculum inhibited her freedom to explore their course offerings, noting that students are sometimes expected to sacrifice either a club or a class to keep up the academically regular course load. Okay, let me first stop you there, sis. That's always been the case, right? That's always been the case. I had to give up some things when I was in nursing school. I couldn't go to all the fun activities and we didn't get off to go to all the games and things like that because we had clinical. It is what it is. Yes, you may have to give us some academic clubs. Yes, you might have to give us some other experiences on campus. That's the life of a nursing student. So that part right there, I do have a little bit of an issue with. It's like, hey, that's to be expected. Okay. So just for you all to know that's kind of expected. Nursing first year Maggie Course explained that clinicals help students gain practical experience. Each semester, she said students take a course that focuses on a different area of nursing, including pediatrics, labor and delivery, and psychology. Students complete their clinical rotation concurrent with the class and are assigned to shadow a nurse throughout their day. Though course have not yet started her clinical, she said the process of registering for her other nursing classes has been very simple. So another student says that the process forces students to shift their schedules around super last minute. He added that he didn't know height. This is what his last name is. He didn't know what to do during course registration due to a lack of education for transfer students. I had to drop two of the classes I wanted to take. Joe Gianni An, a sophomore, says certain clinicals may be rescheduled to different times of the week, forcing students to miss classes or meetings. She added that clinicals, some of which take place off campus, can cause other scheduling difficulties for students to do the travel time. Lucky for me, I have one that's only a 10-minute walk from here. But one of my friends, it's a 30-minute drive away. I think we should just make a form where people can decide beforehand. We can make a clear schedule and submit it all together. So there are some issues. Clinicals, it has always been an issue and a problem. Maybe we should think about and do it kind of like you do with residency. You apply for the spot, you get the spot, that's your spot. They just tell you to be there all the time. I don't know. But it is really difficult to schedule for clinicals. I get it. I understand the frustration. Don't get me wrong, I'm not making light of these students' frustration. It is very frustrating. But you are at the mercy of the hospital or the unit or wherever you're going to. And so, yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So, for those of you who are in Indiana, we're going to wrap up with these last couple of articles here. I want to quickly go mention this. IU Columbus is now offering a Bachelor of Science in Nursing that you can get studying part-time. So this fall, IU Columbus will offer a Bachelor of Science in Nursing degree available part-time, offering flexibility for students who are working and have other responsibilities. The program offers the only in-person part-time BSN in Indiana, hoping expand access and address the nursing shortage. Application opened on February the 1st for IU Columbus Traditional Nursing Program, Accelerated Program for those who already have a bachelor's degree in the field, and the RN to BSN, so those who have their associate's degree in nursing and now want to get a BSN. All three paths are now available on a part-time basis. We've seen such a need for this from both our students who would like more flexibility and our healthcare partners experiencing nursing shortages. Sims explained that the medical employers typically provide tuition assistance. She also noted that most healthcare positions offer flexible scheduling, making this program both affordable and manageable for nursing students already working in the healthcare field. So this could help upskill a whole generation of hospital staff who have the heart and calling to be a nurse. They just need the educational component. So we'll see how this works out. But if anybody's interested, just want to let you know that there's another opportunity and to do it on a part-time basis. I think it's a great way to get started. So if you're thinking about it, go ahead, jump right in. And please don't think that I'm anti healthcare and against all organizations. I am not, but I am here to point out discrepancies in the things that I see. All right, let's talk about this. This is our nurse making a difference for the week. And I wanted to end here with this, and then we'll have a couple of announcements. And this is why the whole story surrounding the ICE raids and all the things that's going on in Minnesota struck with me, is because now we have this. This is just a good example of what nurses do. It says Utah nurse honored for heroism after shark attack in St. Croix. Okay. So when Chris Carroll and his wife flew to the Caribbean to celebrate their wedding anniversary, they expected a week of calm seas and coral reefs, not a life and death rescue. But in January morning in St. Croix, the Utah nurse found himself pulled into a moment that would test both his courage and compassion. Carroll, an RN and director for surgical services at Holy Cross Hospital, Mountain Point, and Lehigh, responded instinctively, doing everything he could to help. And again, that's what I'm saying. Nurses, we respond instinctively. You see somebody in need, we're going to help. But now you have to think twice. Should I intervene? Am I putting my life in jeopardy by this? From the second floor balcony of his hotel, Carroll heard what he described as an ungodly scream. Scanning the water, his eyes locked on a woman struggling about 50 yards offshore. Without hesitation, he sprinted down to the beach and dove in. According to Carroll, I called out to her, and when she turned around and looked at me, I saw that her left arm was gone. And so at that moment, I knew it was a shark attack. I knew it was a big shark and that it was aggressive. That's when it became really terrifying. I kind of had the urge to swim away, but I just decided at that moment that I wasn't going to leave her out there. And so I swam over, grabbed her, put her in the tow position, and started swimming her back to shore. Carol admits it was one of the most terrifying events of his life. I asked her name. She told me her name was Arlene. Asked if she had family and kids. She was conscious all the way back to the beach, but that was the longest, most terrifying swim of my entire life. Despite his efforts and help from bystanders and first responders, Arlene, 56 from Minnesota, later died from her injuries. So locals called Carol's actions nothing short of heroic. Weeks later, the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, Albert Bryan Jr., invited Carol to Government House to thank him personally. We are grateful to the bystanders who acted immediately to render aid and to the first responders who worked urgently and bravely in an effort to save her life, the governor said, applauding Carol's bravery and compassion. At home in Spanish Fork, Carol's co-workers weren't surprised by his actions. That's just Chris, one colleague said. He's the kind of person who runs towards someone in need. So I'm going to stop there. You can go ahead and read more about this on nurse.org. But again, that's what we do. And now you might have to think twice. I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are. All right, so let's talk about some things that are coming up, some fun things, some great things. We have some things that are on the what we're going to do. So 1 second here. So we have coming up this month, and I have to get this open up real quick. We have so you want to be a podcast guest coming up. I'm excited about that. So how to be a good podcast guest. If you're interested in podcast guesting to promote your brand or get your book out there, whatever it is that you need to do, we have a session coming up for you. And you can sign up for that at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz. And so please do sign up for that event. that is going to happen um, on, let's see, and I had it and I lost it. I believe it's the 20, yes, 25th, February 25th, Podcast Power, 6 o'clock. No cost to that. You just sign up for it. Sign up and join us for that event. On the 21st, we have our Break Free event. That's Saturday the 21st. This is your Break Free event. If you want to start your nurse-owned business, sign up at the NurseSharkAcademy.biz for that event. That's on Saturday, February the 21st, our Break Free nursing event, so you can learn how to build and launch your own business. I'm excited for that. Go ahead and sign up for that as well. Then we have coming up, for those of you that are in our local area, this is our local Alignable Alliance event. We have lunch. We're going to go to lunch on February the 11th. So just next week, Wednesday, we're doing Let's Do Lunch. Join us for lunch at Mancino's. We're going to be at Mancino's here in Anderson. So you can sign up on Alignable or message me and I can tell you where it's going to be. But it's going to be at Mancino's at 12 o'clock. We're going to meet for lunch. Yes, you do have to pay for your own lunch. I just have to say that because a lot of people, I have some people that are confused about that. But yes, you do have to pay for your lunch. You're responsible for paying for your own food. But come out and network and learn from other business owners and get to know one another and share in this community. So that will be on February the 11th. That's our local Alignable event in person. Let's do lunch. So that is coming up next week, next Wednesday. And as always, we also have our BLS CPR renewal courses, our open courses for the lay public, as well as TB classes that are available, and that's coming up on February the 18th. And so you have those two classes. So go to Baxter Professional Services, healtheducation.com. You can sign up for those trainings as well. All right, that ends the session for me. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if those of you are watching us on Facebook, give us a like and a comment. We so appreciate that. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.